Howdy, I'm Gary McMahon, and I'd like to tell you a little story about yodeling. Yodeling is an art form, you don't believe that, just try it. And it takes a lot of practice to do it right. If you don't do it right, it can sound something like cat killing, you know. But it's also an art form because it conveys emotion. Uh, your brain doesn't have to process it. There are no words. You can give them a big old yodel, and it just kind of hits you right in the heart. That's a happy yodel. You got blue yodels. Oh, windy yodels. Kind of whimsical yodels. Oh, la, la, and I liked them, I always loved a little yodel in a song here or there to just convey that emotion right out there. And if it's put right, it just works like crazy. And so, being a Western songwriter, and having a history of yodeling and Western songs, I kind of took to it, and I learned a few little yodels. I had this lady interview me one time, and she said, "So you set out to become a professional yodeler?" And I said, "Lady, if you got half a brain cell working, you don't set out to become a professional yodeler. Yodeling is maybe 15 to 30 seconds worth of dynamite, and then it's over. People don't hire you to yodel to them for 2 hours or 3 hours in a night. But you do learn it to put these little breaks in your song that just convey the emotion without having to use lyrics to do the same thing. And like any art form, it takes some serious practice to be able to yodel. And I was never a practicer. I didn't like to practice. So uh, I had lost my butt in the music business in Nashville, and was broke down there. And so I came back home to Colorado. I was looking around for a job, and I got a job on the T Lazy 7 guest ranch up at Aspen, Colorado. I managed their stable up there for about 10 years. And one of the things that came along during this job was the boss wanted to run stagecoaches in town. He had a snowmobile business out at the ranch, and he wanted to sell snowmobile rides, and he figured if he had a good presence in town, people would go out to the ranch and ride those snowmobiles. So he bought a couple of stagecoaches and tasked me with getting the teams ready and getting them in town and learning how to use them in town. And so I did that, and I started driving the stagecoach. And one of the things that was really challenging on that stagecoach was staying warm. I mean, this was Aspen in the wintertime. Sometimes you'd get down to 10 below uh, up there. And so this cowboy hat didn't cut it anymore. I learned how to dress and all this stuff, but this cowboy hat wasn't going to cut it. So I had this guy make me this fur-lined sheepskin cowboy hat. And it was going to be a buckaroo hat. It was going to have a flat brim on it and stuff. Well, what happens to these things, I'm telling you, this is the warmest hat. But what happens to these things is in Aspen, it can snow 1.5 or 2 feet on you in a night. So these things get piled up with snow, and they get wet, and then when they dry out, they curl up. So you look more like a Cossack or something like that. But this being a warm hat, this was the hat to wear if you were going to drive a stagecoach in Aspen. So I grew me a full beard. I mean, I looked like a fur flower up there. And what started happening, I'd give people little yodels, just for the heck of it on the street. And I noticed that they would start riding my stagecoach more if I yodeled. So I got a length of flex exhaust hose, about 4 feet of it, and welded a funnel on either end, stuck one funnel down in the stagecoach, and wired one funnel up there, right there beside me, to where I could talk to them and I could yodel to them while I was going down the street. And it worked great. People would see me going by yodeling to these people in the stagecoach, and they'd be sitting there waiting on me. They wanted to take a ride too, get yodeled at and ride in the stagecoach. And so it started working great. Well, I yodeled every night, 6 to 8 hours a night for 5 years up there. And so you start getting pretty good when you do that every night, all night, And so that was my practice, was just that stagecoach. So when I got done with that, the cowboy poetry gatherings were coming along and that kind of stuff. So I could pretty much yodel socks off of anybody. And but I remember one night, I was still an amateur yodeler when I started out on that stagecoach. And I thought I was getting pretty good. People would say to me, "You're practicing on us, aren't you?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I am." But I thought I was getting pretty good at it. And one night, these 3 babes, beautiful Aspen babes, got in this stagecoach, and they wanted to go around town twice. That's double fare. So sure, girls, get in. So they got in, and I started yodeling to them, going down the street. Yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay, tee, yodeloo, yodelay, yodeloo, 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 yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay. No, they'd clap at that. They were loving that. Well, I started noticing people were stopping on the street and waving to us, and yes, we went by, and I tipped my hat, give them a little yodel. Well, we got around by the Crystal Palace. And this is Aspen's dinner theater, and there was a crowd outside in a line waiting to get in the place. And this crowd just went nuts, I give them a big old yodel, and they just went crazy. And so the second time around town with these girls, I started noticing, when you're driving a stagecoach, your butt's about 8 feet off the ground, so you can see way down the street. And people actually dragging people out of the bars to stand there and watch us go by. And I thought, this is it. This is the night my yodel came in. I'm finally doing it. It's hitting them right square in the heart, just like I thought it would, And so I'd give them a little yodel, and they'd, yeah. And by the time we got back to the Crystal Palace, the crowd was a seething animal. They were spilling out into the streets and just going nuts for us going by. And by this time, I was shameless. I was on top of the stagecoach, standing on top of the stagecoach, had my lines in this hand and this hat in this hand, giving them a great big old yodel, Yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay, tee, yodeloo, yodelay, yodelay. I was doing everything I could. And so we turned the corner there at the Crystal Palace, and I looked down at that stagecoach, and there were 3 bare bottoms sticking out of that stagecoach. And those girls had been mooning the town since they got in. Heck, I thought it was the night my yodel came in, That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.